Welcome back to Open Line. I'm Chuck Long here. We've got another half hour on Open Line. If you're just tuning in, we're so glad that you did. We're asking the expert tonight. We're asking the attorney. We're talking about Kevin Kennedy, one of our very favorites here, and I know one of your favorites as well. Kevin and the Kennedy Law Firm, been in business over 35 years, and with that 35 years comes incredible amount of experience, and every time you call him with one of those questions or comments, you're witness to that experience. So, Kevin, you know, we often say there's so many things that a lawyer has to know because there's so many areas, you know, whether it's dealing with the insurance companies, whether it's dealing, you know, in personal injury or estate planning. So kind of what do you say as far as where does all that knowledge come from? I mean, is it just experience? Is it constantly staying up? Is it constantly reading about?
Well, one of the things we can learn from this show and others, there are theories in the law, and the law is always against fraud. It's always against deceit, and it's supposed to always stand for what's right and fair. And if we stand on those principles, we can find legal case law that will support our position. So again, we know that you can't get ripped off. That's not fair. We also know if you commit a crime, then you have to be punished by the state of Tennessee. Where it gets into the gray areas, well, I'm representing you in a civil lawsuit, but you just admitted some things that are criminal. Well, I didn't know that was criminal. So again, we learned the lesson. Be careful what we say. If there are issues that you are sensitive to, talk to your lawyer about that. And a skilled lawyer takes you through the jungle, and you come out on the other side, because realistically, no one wants to cheat anybody. No one wants to lie. No one wants to get their family member shot in the middle of this trial. So you can't know everything, but we can stand on those simple premises and just about answer anything. Remember, the only thing an honest man can do is make an honest mistake. And, you know, there's no law against being honest and trying to help people. So doing the right thing is always the premise of our American judicial system. Keep that in your mind, and you can kind of figure out some of the other things even before they get to you.
Absolutely. So always great advice. All right. If you do have one of those questions or comments, just give us a call, 737-7587, that number on your screen. We're going to go to the callers right now. Lewis is on the line with us. Lewis, we're glad that you called in this evening. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, I do. I'm 66 years old, and I have done a holographic wheel, but I don't know what to do with it from here. I don't know if do I file it with someone? Do I get it notarized? And after I do that, what do I do with it?
Okay, great question. In the state of Tennessee, we still recognize a holographic wheel. First question is, what is a holographic wheel? That's one that you sit down and you just write out. And that will take precedence over my carefully executed will. So, you know, if I did one carefully and I left everything to my wife and she's got a copy of it, anytime I have the right to pick up a piece of paper and I revoke all existing wills and I leave everything to St. Jude's Hospital, if I sign it in my handwriting, that is a holographic will. Now, you know what I would anticipate? Someone would say, well, you know, Kevin wasn't in his right mind when he did it. So they would say it was mental duress, or somebody put pressure on him called undue influence because he would really want his family to get that. So there's a will contest. So if I had that holographic, I would treat it just like a will. I would put it in a secure place with who you want to and who you trust. So many rich people that I've represented over the years, I'd say, well, don't you want to move some of this money right now to your family? And, you know, I hear quite often, Kevin, I just can't trust them. I said, oh, my goodness. So we do wills all the time. We do powers of attorney all the time. And that's why it gets down to that person becomes a fiduciary. What does that mean? They're in a trust position. Everybody needs a trusted friend. Be careful on our associates, be careful on our partnerships, and a trusted friend is a great thing to have.
And Lewis, we do appreciate that question. Kevin, let me ask you kind of as a follow-up on that. You know, I've had a will done and drawn up, and one thing that amazed me though was much more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I thought, you know, we're just going to go in there and this is who I want to leave it to and this is how we want to deal with it. But it is a lot more complicated, I think, than a lot of people realize. Kind of what's your advice on that?
Okay. Well, first off, we need to have an executor of the will. Okay. Who is that? When I die, that's the person's entrusted to take the will, publish it at the court, and then they'll issue letters of testamentary. So with that, they have the ability to sell cars or distribute property. They have the ability to do all kinds of things under the direction of the court. And if there's real estate, if I left my farm to my 3 children, well, they have the ability to sell the farm, divide the proceeds among the 3. And so there's a lot of things that gets into it. The more property you have, the bigger the estate. I met with a great financial planner, one of the biggest from Regions Bank. And I said, well, tell me about the richest people in Tennessee. He said, you know, they always have the best lawyers and the best accountants. I said, well, tell me about this. He said, they're all really headstrong. And they had to be that way to fight off this one and fight off that one to accumulate that wealth. For a rich man or a poor man, do the will. I tell everybody to do that. And then put it in a safe place, safety deposit box, put it in a home safe where somebody knows how to get to it if you passed away. They can take that document, save your family life. One of the great things, no one wants their children to fight. The best way to start a fight in your family is not have a will. So we need to settle it. And if there's certain things, my jewelry, my furniture, my horses, my law, furniture, and all the books, then I ought to put it in as a specific bequeath to that, leave no misunderstanding. And that's great. They say good fences make good neighbors. A good will makes a happy family.
Good to know. Goodwill makes a happy family. I'm going to have to file that one once again with great advice from Kevin. Kevin, let's talk a little bit about, I saw recently a story on the news. Neighbors, basically there was a dispute. Basically, I mean, it sounded somewhat simple, but it certainly in the story was much more complicated. But it was loud music playing at a neighbor's house, and the other neighbor called the authorities to say they've got to stop doing this, and it escalated, and they said that they're going to follow up on the story. What's your advice even in a situation like that? Do you call a lawyer if someone is threatening you in a situation like that and they're afraid that their neighbor's going to retaliate against them? What do we do in that situation?
Come on. You are there, Chuck, and a smart man recognizes when you start a fight, you do not know what your neighbors are going to do. And some people have no limits. You know, they put nails in the driveway. They put sugar in your gas. They put kerosene or antifreeze out for your pet, all those things. And you say, well, I never thought that's illegal. They can't do that. Well, we understand, but it takes a lot to prove. So if I knew that I would deal very delicately, but a good thing is to always get a lawyer. You talk to them. We write letters all the time for people. We had one where they put cameras up, and the cameras were watching them in their swimming pool and watching their children. So we wrote a letter and said we would appreciate if you would take that down, not invade our privacy, and we got it handled. If it had been an open confrontation, it wouldn't have worked. We had someone put a fence post over on another person's property, and he went and said, you got to move it. He said, if you put your hand on that fence post, I'll hit you with this shovel. He said, well, I'm going to do it. Are you listening? And he grabbed that fence post. The other man hit him with a shovel and killed him. So, I mean, can we see this coming or not? And then that gentleman was prosecuted for second-degree murder. These neighbor situations can escalate so fast. We had a case down here where a neighbor was shooting off fireworks, irritating. You turn the loud music on. If it's going crazy, I would call the police. That's your first, and see if they can calm them down and go on. And if they can't, if they said that's all I can do, then see your lawyer. Kevin Kennedy will always tell you, take a proactive approach. Let's evaluate our options. And you really don't want to get into it with really crazy neighbors. You got more to lose than to gain. And so have I had clients absolutely move because they had other neighbors? Absolutely. And they can escalate beyond measure.
All right, great to know. All right, if you do have a question or comment, we are coming up close to the close of the show. So we've got another segment. We're going to get as many questions as we can in there. So give us a call at 737-7587. Stay on the line with us. We'll get to those right after this. You're watching Open Line.